I've seen a lot of pairs of guys that have been hanging out together way too long until they're laughing all the time. One thing I always heard from the beginning when I talked about this being a movie, was that the rule is that animated movies don't work unless they're Disney movies for kids. Unless they're family movies. The Simpsons are such iconic characters, Bart could be that age forever because it's a more surreal show. It's amazing what we can get away with and what we can't. But it's not for me to decide. They don't make you pay for the humor. It's up and down, but they're trying to give you as many laughs as possible in 2 minutes. They are the most honest comedians ever. People say that the Beavis voice doesn't sound like me or some other voices. Butthead I think sounds like me. Stealing, you'll go far in life. Actually, there is something funny about getting away with it. Country music has often been approached either like the super polite version of it that you'd see on the country music channels, or it's someone completely making fun of it who doesn't even like it. I started out making animated shorts in my house by myself. Then when Beavis and Butthead happened, I had people fighting over it. There was the stress of, am I getting screwed here? And eventually, I had about as many people working for me on Beavis and Butthead as Richard Thomas Middleditch does in season 5, and that became just as stressful. She defaced my fly. And I've never been the same since. You ought to try being cruel to some people. George Clinton was involved a lot, including helping with some of the score with John Frizzell. And we got Bootsy Collins, who I had actually met and worked with briefly back in the 90s, on a pilot for an animated series called The Name is Bootsy, Baby, so it was great to have him on board. Then there was a kid in the neighborhood about 3 blocks away, his name was Bobby Beavis. I think last season it was Blaze Foley. This season it's probably Betty Davis. In both cases, they're the last episode of the season because we thought we'd end with something a little more obscure. They say it figures MTV would do such a vulgar, awful, horrible show and they completely miss that it's satirizing the people who watch MTV. I'm not someone who enjoys telling people to do something they don't want to do, and Richard is the same way. So there's plenty of comedy that can come from stuff like that. I think at the point when they were first starting to talk about a movie, it was a little bit different back then. I didn't think I would make this much money. Betty Davis, she's Miles Davis's ex-wife, and there's just this amazing stuff she did. Her story, it's almost part mystery. I just had no idea. I think I do too many voices in these shows. I think it's because we have trouble getting voice talent. I like the Stooges. You know what movie I saw that I sort of discovered late was Jerry Lewis in The Nutty Professor. I really liked that. They're free because they don't know any better. So they can just run around and do whatever, and most of the time they don't get caught. It was really weird, when this thing started, to hear lawyers and MTV people calling me and actually saying "butthead." People tried to avoid it too. Who is Mike Judge? Let me think. The only way I could possibly answer that question would be in a nonverbal fashion. I think I could do an interpretive dance that would answer that question for you. When the show started out, it was like all of a sudden we had to do 35 episodes and we had just a month and a half to write them, and it took me a while to realize that I was in charge. One thing I was thinking about is that they probably get their comeuppance about the same percentage that people in real life do. Basically, stealing for all practical purposes might as well be legal in New York. I don't think any movie I would do would be too serious or serious at all. All the Disney lead male characters always have this kind of John Davidson kind of look to them. They all look like the same guy, and all the females look like the same, and I think the guys are just way too big. I almost didn't name Butthead. I came real close to calling him something else. It seems like there's a lot of people who just do not understand satire. They think it's weird. There's people who just don't understand you portray something or just explore a character, it means you're condoning it, saying this is the way to live. I put the storyboard down and came back to it like 2 weeks later and saw that I had written Butthead next to the picture, and it kind of made me laugh and I thought, well, might as well go for every laugh you can get. I've got a huge, gigantic deal. We're talking about huge deals. Susie Lynn, the producer of those segments, goes in and lays all the voices over the video. I don't return anybody's calls unless it's going to mean extra money for me. And I've completely cut off all relationships with any friends that I had before the show. And I've copped an attitude. Why should every single character be an honor student who goes around helping others and never doing anything wrong? Is that like the rule or something? You know, at that age, you want to show everyone else how wild you are. It's a combination of being bored, looking for a cheap thrill and being really stupid, a dangerous combination. Beauty and the Beast seemed like it all was really brown. The whole thing was just so brown and orange and yellow, like Burger King or something. I don't think I would have liked Beauty and the Beast at any age. When I was a kid it was like, who could be the coolest? Who could do the stupidest thing? And you knew it was a stupid thing to do, but you would do it just so you could be the coolest guy. And then you end up doing really cruel crap. I went to a Catholic high school and it seemed like every time I drew something for a class project, it either got thrown away by the teacher or something. In order to have a plot, you have to have a conflict, something bad has to happen.